This video is going to be for portfolio 5E and F, intersecting seams, one with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and the other with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. To prepare for them, I have taken 2 pieces of my 4x4 and cut them in half. That will do one of them, and then you'll need to take another 2 pieces of 4x4 and cut those in half so that you'll have 4 sets, 8 pieces of fabric here to work on. Now, the intersecting seams, what is that? Well, quite often you end up with points where they have to all match. And so this is, you want it to be matched like on the square, all of your seams, like this seam met up with that seam met up with that seam, and you're right there in a perfect little match is what you're really trying to get. Now this one was with 1/4 inch seams. So if I look on the back, you can see that. This one is on 5/8 inch seams. And here's where they intersect, right there. So you want all 4 corners to be nice and square at 90-degree angle. And here is the back, 5/8 inch seam. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, right sides together again, is we're going to sew our seams on this short end. Let's bring the camera back out here a little bit. Okay, so we're going to sew a 5/8 inch seam here and a 5/8 inch seam here. I'm going to back stitch it. I know it's not very long, but I am going to back stitch it. And this is a place where I like, it's a short distance. If I put the pin in this way, it's much easier to work with the pin perpendicular. My goodness, my tongue is twisted. Perpendicular to my stitching seam. So if I'm going to stitch 5/8, I want this at a right angle or perpendicular to where I'm going to stitch. And when you do that, you want to make sure the pin is sticking out here so that as it approaches, you can pull out the pin. But there is such a thing as it's not as dangerous if you have this perfectly perpendicular there so that it isn't at a slant, like your pin in at a slant like this. You can usually stitch right over it and not have a problem because it goes right into the feed dog and it just goes right through. But like most books and manuals for your machines will say do not sew over pins. So we take it out as we get there. Let's do this little baby 5/8 inch seam. Here it goes. Hold my threads. I'm starting in just a little ways. Hold those nice and taut. Take a couple stitches forward. Do my back stitch. So it's clear tight there. Now I'll go stitch forward. And I'll take my pin out. Almost at the end. Back stitch a little bit. And then stitch on out. Okay, trim my threads. Ooh, I got a little bit of a bird's nest on that first one. Where I started him. Let's see if he's got a loose thread. A little bit. Not too much. I can snip that one. And snip this so he doesn't get caught on anything. And where'd that other thread go? Right there. Okay, let's stitch this one. Okay, let me hold him a little tighter. Maybe I didn't have a hold of it tight enough. Feels like it might have slipped underneath. There I got it tight, but it was sure taking it a little while to get tight. It really slipped with some thread. I'm going to hold it as I start again there. See if that will prevent it from doing its little loopy loops. And part of it is too because I'm stopping and starting the machine. Like that time there, I just kept going and finished. Now that I know what the operation is, you know what the operation is, you can just do it instead of stopping and starting between things. Okay, so now we're going to go and press them. Press them open. I'll meet you at the iron. Okay, I'm over at the iron now with my intersecting seams, the 5/8 inch ones. And we're going to press them now. Press them open. You need to have done. Okay. So here those two little seams are. And like we learned in our pressing, we are going to press in, you can see, press in those stitches so that we're kind of bringing back together all of the holes that you've perforated, kind of marrying the thread with the actual piece of textile again. Then we're going to press them open, the two. So I'm going to open up here. And we could use our press cloth if we were concerned that something was going to damage these, or damage the iron, if they were extra delicate, whatever. I tend to not do that on plain cottons because there's really nothing that's going to happen. The heat can take this, right? So I finger press it open, make sure I've got it started really nicely. Right? And then we're going to take the iron to it. And we're not going to iron, we're going to press, and I'm going to give it mostly steam, like we said. Now, if I'm concerned about it, these are pretty short seams, I might have done this with the poking of the very point of the iron. Okay. We're going to turn it over, make sure that it's all nice and flat. Looks pretty good. I'm going to give it just a little steam there so it's nice and open. And we'll do it to the other one now. Letting it sit on there, the pressure of the iron a little bit. I'm not pushing on it. I am not pushing down on the iron. The iron is heavy enough with all of that heat and steam. It does the job for you. So now there is our two pressed open 5/8 inch seams to now make an intersection. Okay. Go back over to, actually I'm going to stay here and show you how to pin this. So this is a place where I definitely start where I know I need to match exactly. And you'll be doing that in your pattern sewing. You'll want to start at markings that they say should match and then go from there, pinning it in the rest. So what we're trying to get is these two seams right here to really match. And let's see if I can't zoom in a little bit more on that. Focus. There we go. So right here. So we're trying to match that seam with this seam when we stitch across this way. So I always like lay it there and pull it back, see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to pin it on this side all the way through all those layers. Because another reason is as you're sewing this, you don't want to catch this up and then have it fold over in the seam, nor back here. So I put a pin on both sides of my intersecting seam. I don't feel like that went quite through. There we go. All right. And then I'll do a little check to see if, yeah, that looks like I'm going to be there. And now I could put another pin out here, keeping my raw edges together over there. Do another pin like this. Since it's a short distance, instead of in the stitch line, I'll just do it perpendicular to the stitch line. Okay. Now, the other thing that we need to remember when we're pinning things is that we do it generally on a surface. Don't, there we go. Don't do it over your lap or hold down to it and do all of this because it's going to distort it. So you can get it ready by, picking it up and making sure you're in line. But then it's always, always better to do your pinning holding the project down on a surface and do your pinning. Picking up just all that you need. Because once you do this, you start to manipulate the textile and it can cause you problems. All right, now I'll meet you back over at the sewing machine. Okay, we're back over at the sewing machine now. And I'm just looking at, looks like my thread is, there he is. He was hiding from me. Get him out there. Okay. We're back at the sewing machine from pressing our two shorter sides and matching them up and pinning them. Now we're ready to stitch the 5/8 inch longer seam that will intersect the four corners. So we're going to make sure that we get him started at 5/8. This is still the 5/8 inch one. Lower, hold those threads nice and taut. Couple front. Let's do it back. Now front and stitch on down. Remove our pin. Now we don't want to remove this one too soon because that has this little edge there. We want to make sure that goes in without getting turned over. So there, now we can remove that. And as soon as I'm through the intersection, I'll take that one just so it doesn't, I wait until I'm through the actual intersection there so that it doesn't move on me. And I take it out right before it goes under the needle. Back stitch and stitch on away. Trimmed my tails. Now let's do a little peek and see if we made it or not. Okay. Oh, I think that's pretty good. So now we would go back to press it and press it clear open like this so that it ends up being nice and smooth, just like this one. Matching right there. Now you'll repeat all of those steps with, you still have 2 and 2, 4 pieces, only this time you're going to do 1/4 inch seams along the short edge first, and then when those are together, you're going to stitch it along the long edge, 1/4 inch, so that you will end up pressed and polished with an intersecting seam of 1/4 inch. And there you have P5E and F. See you next time.